Hello, Richard from budgetguitarist.com. It's been a while. Lately I'm averaging one video a month. I'd rather make more, but there's a lot going on. I've got a lot of stuff that I've got scripted and you don't care about any of that. For the past couple of years, I've been using this as my primary computer. 2018 MacBook Pro, 6-core i7, 16 gig of RAM, 512 SSD, and for 5 years ago, this thing was a beast. It was probably $2,200 when it came out. I didn't buy it when it came out. I waited 2 or 3 years and I paid a lot less than that. I probably paid like $1,500 instead of $2,200. Just like with cars, if you're willing to get something that's 2 or 3 years old, you can save quite a bit of money. This machine, in my opinion, is still plenty fast, this 5-year-old laptop. It certainly can handle the average Logic Pro, Final Cut Pro, video editing, regular video, etc., blah, blah. But lately I've been starting to think that it was time for me to step up to the M1, M2 processor line. So Apple moved from Intel to their own silicon, which is like, it's a chip on a chip design. There's like a little board that's got the CPU, the storage, and the memory, and it's all soldered to one little thing. There are some extreme advantages of that, speed being one of them. And you can architect the thing to be super fast, and that's what Apple's done with the M1 and the M2 line. This 2020 M1 Mac Mini is 2 to 4 times faster than this 2018 Intel 6-core i7. From a practical standpoint, with this 5-year-old computer, why did I feel the need to get a new computer? Well, honestly, if the cost of stepping up to M1 was going to be $1,000 or more, I wouldn't have done it because, hello, budgetguitarist.com. The fact of the matter is that you can get a 2020 M1 Mac Mini for $450 or less. If you buy them used, I've seen them as cheap as $299 on eBay. I didn't get this on eBay. I got it on Amazon. I got an Amazon refurbished Mac Mini, and I think I paid $440 for it, something like that. As I record this, it is June 2023. You know, I forgot about one of the most important things about the Mac Mini. I've pushed it really, really hard. I've pushed it very hard. I can't get the fan to turn on, like no matter what I do. Now, I'm sure it's possible, and one day maybe I'll hear it kick in, but just the average stuff that I'm doing, that fan will not go on. For a recording environment, that's really nice. Now, this 2018 Intel i7, that fan goes on. Anytime I'm doing anything in Final Cut Pro, the fan goes on. So, there's that. Two things specifically. Number one, Dolby Atmos mixing. I want to get into that at some point in time. The M1 chip is better suited than this 5-year-old i7. And Logic Pro can do some stuff on the M1 that it can't do on the Intel. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, there's some software like the Mercury 6 synth plugin. I made a video about that on Budget Keyboardist, my other YouTube channel, about how it could actually crash on this computer because the 5-year-old i7 wasn't powerful enough to run it. But the M1 is. And so, you know, that's pretty cool. So I got the entry-level M1 Mac Mini, and I wish I would have filmed like unboxing. Oh wait, I did. Let's watch that. I did have some concerns. This has got 16 gig of RAM. That's got 8. This has got 512 SSD internal storage. That's got 256. So what do these things mean? Let's start with the RAM. So Apple was promoting the M1 series as because the RAM is architected right on the same board as the CPU, you know, and the SSD, everything is faster, and 8 gig of RAM on an M1 is like 16 gig of RAM on an Intel, you know, in practical terms. So I've had it for a month now. And what would I say about Apple's claim? I would say, yeah, pretty much. The performance of the M1 system, even the entry level from 3 years ago, is so good that when I open my Logic projects, like my last album that I made, when I open those sessions on the Mac Mini, I'm not using more RAM. It's hard to explain, But yeah, 8 gigabytes of RAM on the intro level, it actually is enough to do most things. Now, where you might need 16 is if you've got a lot of money. If you got a lot of money, buy top of the line everything. I mean, why not? Or if you're in music production, if you're loading up a lot of orchestral libraries and stuff like that, then you might want that. But if you're just the average dude or dudette, then 8 gig goes a long way. I'll tell you what, I have yet to really run into an issue with it. In terms of the hard drive, so the internal hard drive is 256. How do we get around that? Well, you get around that with an external SSD drive. So for around $100, I got an external 1 terabyte SSD that will do read-write speeds of about 500 meg per second. Is that fast enough for audio? I would say 100 is fast enough for audio. So yeah, it's plenty fast. This is the thing, if you're doing like Logic Pro or Cubase or whatever, and you got all your tracks on there and stuff, I don't think you need to spend a ton of money and get the fastest SSD. I do think though that if you're going to be moving files around and like if you're going to be backing up to it, then shooting for something with about 800 meg per second read-write speed I think is pretty good. Faster than that is a bonus, but I think 800 is plenty fast enough. And when I'm working on projects on my Mac Mini, I can't tell the difference between whether it's on the external SSD or the internal. And so I treat the internal as just the operating system and the apps, and then the external is where all my big projects are. And the nice thing is I've got a terabyte on there, so I've got all my albums on there, and I got everything on there. So that's pretty cool. So how did I integrate this in into my studio? This is where it gets a little weird, because I don't just do one thing. I do gigs, like a one-man band kind of thing, and to do that, I don't want to be staring at a screen. I like the way this room is set up right now. It's like the camera is where the audience would be, right? And so I can practice, I can put my mic up, and then right behind me here are my EVPA speakers that I gig with. The subwoofer is under the desk. You can't really see it. Oh, actually you can a little bit, see, sub. Anyway, when I'm practicing and my laptop is right here, just like it is when I gig, it is my gigging setup. But when I'm recording, then that's a little bit different. When I'm recording, I've got Logic Pro on my M1 here. I've got my Tascam interface. This is 16 inputs. I've got Bluetooth Keyboard Magic Trackpad. I've got this wonderful Keylab Essential 49. And this has got, if you're not familiar with this, it's got like play and record buttons on it and stuff. So if I'm programming drums, if I'm doing like a synth part, if I'm doing anything like that, I can just use this keyboard. Oh yeah, that's... And what's really cool is like I can tweak the knobs on the keyboard and they're tied to the software. So this is the Arturia Mini Moog. So I can, That's cool, right? The knobs are big enough you can't really tell from all the way back there, but the knobs are almost full size on this screen here. So it's really cool. The problem is if I want to record like a piano part and I want to use this, then I pretty much have to like hit record and then turn around and put down the piano part and then come back and hit, stop. But that's not the end of the world. Now, when it's time to mix, what I do is I just take this guy off the table and I plug in this guy. So this is the Behringer X Touch, and what it is, it's what's like a mixing desk that controls your Logic Pro or Cubase or whatever. And it's got 8 sliders plus a master slider, but you can set up banks of 8, so you can circle through all your sliders, and it's automated mixing, so the sliders move, just like in the big pro studios back in the old day. So this thing's really cool, but honestly, for just recording, I'm not going to use it. I'm just using the buttons on the keyboard. So then you might ask, well, if you're doing songwriting and stuff, right? So you got the synth back there, you got the keyboard here. If I'm playing guitar, I'll be spun around in this chair looking at the screen. I got my HX Stomp over here, putting down the parts. So why do I have this laptop here? Well, it's good for lyrics. It's good for looking stuff up. Technically speaking, if I wanted to, I could just move the Logic project over to this and work on it and go back and forth this way and that way. If I wanted to, I could do that. I'm not really sure why I would want to, but I could. So it's not bad to have like a laptop that you can do your lyrics and take notes and all that kind of stuff with. The good news is if either one of these computers goes down, the other one can act as a backup. They both can run Logic Pro. They both can run Final Cut Pro. Okay, so what are some bumps in the road? Well, there's a couple of things that I stumbled over as I was making the transition from Intel to M1. Melodyne, which is pitch correction software, that will run on the M1 with no problem, but if you want to run it inside of Logic Pro, then it requires Logic Pro to be in Rosetta. And Rosetta is like, it's simulating the Intel code base or whatever. I can't really explain it, but does it slow Logic Pro down to the point where I notice, hey, this is slower? No, not really. I can't notice any difference, but on a big, huge session, maybe I would. I'm hoping that at some point in time between the two companies, you know, that they figure that stuff out. I don't like that I have to run it in Rosetta, but I mean, on the other hand, it's a workaround and it works perfect, so I can't really complain about that. Let's see what else. Well, I mean, to me, the biggest problem was the internal drive was so small, but I got around that with an external SSD. I think the biggest challenge really of getting this $440 computer is sort of the blow to my ego, because I spent $1,500 or $1,600 on this just a couple of years ago, and now I've upgraded for $440. So that's kind of weird to me. But boy, do you pay a premium for laptops. You really do, because I mean, the trackpad, the keyboard, the monitor, the speakers, they'll all work. Like even if I got like a PC in here, you know, running Windows or running Linux, I could still use all those peripherals. So when I have to upgrade a computer here, all I do is just upgrade the computer part, and you know, that's cool. So if you've got like a 20 whatever Mac, Intel Mac, and you're kind of thinking, you're looking on Amazon and seeing that $440 M1 Mac Mini, and you're wondering, like, is 8 gig really enough compared to the 16 I have now? What about the internal storage? I would say, you know, go ahead and do it. You're going to get a significantly faster computer that will run more plugins, more synth plugins, you know, more outboard gear. It's going to perform better. You can upgrade your setup for a mere $440. Now, what about the M2 Mac Mini that you can get for $600 something right now? How do I feel about that? Well, I think if you've got the money, that's great. But two things. Number one, the base level Mac Mini that you buy right now with a 256, that drive is slower than the drive in this guy. Does that mean that drive is slow? No. The internal drive in the M2 Mac Mini is plenty fast, but it is slower. And you're going to get about a 20% performance increase in CPU, maybe 18%. Are you going to notice it? Probably not. But if you've got the money, should you do it? Yeah, you know. If you've got the money, you should buy top of the line everything. I think I already said that. So anyway, would I recommend spending $400 something on a Mac Mini? Absolutely, wholeheartedly. I definitely would. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. And hopefully it won't be another month between this video and the next one, but it might be. But regardless, it will always come out on a Friday at 5.